Welcome to yet another episode of Not Yet Mature, the podcast series talking about life and business, the mix between the two, and hopefully allowing the entrepreneur and founder to find some insights of what the path looks like, or rather, should look like ahead. XCAP has a vision that the ethical business that is formed around servitude and relational transactions should be given the advantage to exit the finite space and enter the infinite games. This, collectively, is our mission and our goal. Without further delay, let's dive into today's chat. Here with me, your host, founder of Exemplo Capital, Dion Richter. Like and subscribe. You know, the usual.
Okay, everybody. So, I guess today we're just going to jump straight into the latest version of the episode, I guess. You know what series we're busy with. We're busy with a series called Restore. I can't even remember the series name. I think it will be on the title, but it's somewhere in the line of Restoring Relationships, where this whole series is about how we as humans have this natural rush towards being relationally connected. I think that's the best way to put it. We as humans have this natural rush to be relationally connected. If you're watching on YouTube or our shorts or social media, you can see the video will be quite different. The background's not the studio quality that one would expect. The biggest reason for that is we're still busy setting up the studio space and getting that sorted. This is in my home office studio, and the cameras are quite sometimes on different angles because I'm at clients and I need to take gear with to that side, and so everything. So I just quickly connect stuff and plug in, ready to go. So welcome to today's show. So today we're going to talk about putting relationship or relational connection to the test. Now, although we will speak about cultures and habits later, and I've mentioned so many times that we're going to talk about it later, and the reason for that is even the snippets that you get in these episodes are the mere fact that relationship or cultures and habitats are most probably the biggest thing that influences who we are. Right, it influences us in our household. It influences us in our workplace, in our country that we live in. We take offense when people, go against our culture, and our culture manipulates our habits. Our habits form who we are, how we do things, how we, from a sales point of view, we check how we can manipulate that or put science to the test to that to manipulate people to buy more, right? So there's a lot of cool things about that we're going to explore from a business point of view, from a personal point of view. So stick around. But currently we're on the topic of relationship to the test. So although we're going to talk about cultures and habits later, there are a couple of things that I feel that I want to address now. So the first thing that I want to address is the following, right? For the individual to change the habitat is much harder than for the habitat to influence the individual. So when you are sitting with a relational, or kind of like any issue for that matter, the value system of the culture needs to accommodate for the goal. Now, let's pause for a slight moment, okay? Because what do I mean? Those are big words or small words, but in a confusing manner. So let's just look at a step back. So here's a step back. Relational issues are as follows. Relational issues is in any space of our lives, whether it's personal, whether it's work, whether it's family, church, and more, when the ease of anything causes an unnatural or lack of interpersonal connection. meaning the comfort zone of technology, the comfort zone of systems, the comfort zone of getting a takeaway fast, the comfort zone of instant gratification, the comfort zone of fast services. When that comfort zones and ease causes this unnatural lack of human interaction or interpersonal connection and causes this lack of coexistence, that is a relational issue. And we talked about this in episode 1 when we discussed where this whole concept came from. But your cup will always have a sense of it needs a bit more, right? As you are rushing toward the need to be relationally involved. The first character trait that we as humans inherited from God, the first character trait that we can see in Genesis, one character from God. There's plenty of characteristics that we see from God, and there's plenty of characteristics that we see from human. But the first characteristic that we see that we inherited, apart from the fact that we are created in His image, I'd rather not say that's a characteristic aspect, but it is. So if you want to get all technical on that, that's 100% fine. But the first thing that character is, we were created to be relational beings. So to put it in simpler, if I want to be more relational at work, it is faster to put everything that's in context, more effective and more sustainable if my work environment or work habitat has a culture of relational connections. In other words, they've got spaces to relationally connect. They've got events to relationally connect. They've got moments and situations to relationally connect. And I think with COVID, there's a brilliant book. I'm looking at my books here now. The book's name is Resilient. There we go. Resilient by John Aldridge. Now, John Aldridge wrote this because he believes of post-pandemic, after COVID, our souls were relationally disconnected. It's a brilliant book that contributed a lot to this thought that I have on this topic. But in any case, so he talked about a very valid point of workspaces was digitally connected, churches was digitally connected, but we never got into that sequence to relationally connect. So your work kind of needs to have that priority set towards them, to take it upon themselves to create moments, even if you work remotely, to relationally connect. And I think that is a very difficult thing for work to get it right. I don't think it is that simple. I mean, as a culture coach and a productivity coach and working with processes and people and cultures with companies, that is one of the things we ask the most when it's a remote company. Like, how do you meet? Where's the water cooler moment? Where's the interpersonal moment? Because even though you've got this brilliant idea to create an amazing culture for your company, it needs to be part of the company's culture to cater for that. And yes, I mean, it might seem easier just to influence the individual, but I can promise you now it's not sustainable. Let me give you an example. I can spend enough time with one student, if I'm in school, in a varsity, to not be on their phones in my class. But it will have zero or little to zero impact on the other students and the way the school actually works around that policy. But if the school has a value system in a certain way that it affects, that it talks about, when we talked about the schooling system with being on their phones and social media, but if they've got that value system, it's much easier for me to not only target or influence the individual, but collectively go for the crowd and the entire environment around the problem. Now, the topic for today is putting a relationship to the test, right? So it's not really about the habit and the culture, but how does it match up in the workplace? How does it bring forth success, and how does it allow for a better human feeling, less rushy, etc.? And why didn't I even start with the culture and habitat example? Okay, so let's maybe quickly answer that first. If we are in a leadership role, leadership position, managerial role, starting a company. Look, if you're starting a company, you always be part of the manager role, even if you give it to a board of directors, even if you step out, you always have that influence of managing, in a sense, an aspect of that company, starting the company. Now, remember, Not Yet Mature is, apologies about that, is a digital studio that resembles the voice of Exemplar Capital, that is there for the startup and for the corporate company. So it's not really there for the students, but it's there for the business enthusiast. Um, Especially for those starting businesses, we want to give you tools and things to build an infinite company. So we owe it out to ourselves to implement value systems within our companies when we start that up, or within our teams, or within our next step, or within our organization. We owe it to ourselves to implement value systems that are not contradicting to the infinite games, but that are built around servitude and built around ethical business practices. And that's why we talk about the values and we talk about the cultures and we talk about that before we even go to the core point of where the relationships fit in with that. Now, these value systems, they're not rules and used to influence every individual that forms part of that habitat. So think about this. If you've ever been to one of my keynotes, you've definitely seen some of the examples where I use the example of an athlete. I usually say with an athlete to use the example of rules versus values is, if I say to an athlete, let's say I'm coaching an athlete, I'm saying to the athlete, listen, you're not allowed to eat chocolates. You should exercise intensively for 1 hour every single day. You are not allowed to drink alcohol. You're not allowed to XYZ. And I just lay down the rules, right? All of these rules come from a place where I want the best for the athlete, and scientifically they make sense. They're backed, right? It's 100% there. Now, pause for a moment. I use the same example over and over again. If I were to say that athlete is a father or family man and he has a birthday party of one of his kids and he eats a piece of cake of the birthday on the birthday, does that affect his health or his existence as an athlete? Surely not. Does that break the rule? Yes, it does, because the rule said no sugar, or this is your sugar intake. The thing is, if we follow just rules, and I'm not saying not to follow rules, right? But if we just implement rules, we're surely going to break them. So we need so many sub rules. But if I implement a value system and say, listen, as an athlete, we need to live healthily. Eating sugar once is not unhealthy. Eating it every single day, or an excess of, that is. So it's much easier to implement value systems within a culture. And when we look at the habitat formed around, all these value systems of what they stand for, we see how it influences the individual to the best possible way if the value system is built correctly. Now, you might want another example on this one, and I'm going to give it to you. So the example that I want to use with this one is, let's for a moment talk about this amazing, I think he is seen as an explorer, but he's got this brilliant vision and research. His name is Dan Buettner, and Dan Buettner talks about blue zones. I'm sure on Netflix you've seen the whole thing about blue zones. So blue zones are there's certain spaces in the world where people live close by or over 100 years old. Like, that's the median, the average age. That's how old people get. And ironically, not all of those spaces people live too healthily, right? But there's a couple of things that I'm not going to talk about today that Dan speaks about that you can definitely see is a clear foundation on every single one of them. It's amazing how a lot of that, even though they don't say it in the shows, a lot of biblical principles. But so when it comes to Dan and the entire model of the blue zones, the point that I want to make is if a value system of a culture, if a value system of a habitat is so strong that it influences a culture to the better, every single individual capitalize to the best potential thereof. And that's why it's so important for us that we need to take it upon ourselves to have a value system in the culture that we create, in this company that we create, that accommodates for the best for the individual. Does that kind of make sense? That's what I'm leaning towards. What we're busy talking about today is building a company with a value system that has space to be relationally connected, because that will keep the cups full and that will build a more resilient team towards the infinite space and put the company in that position. So our value should be a value of relational connection. And the hard part is we actually need to model it. Not just for our kids, but for ourselves and the people around us. And you can say what we want. We've talked about it in the previous 2 episodes. We do not model relational connections. There's a couple of practical things that I believe we should be able to do and put ourselves to the test to do it. The first thing is, if you have an office environment, and when I talk about office, I don't mean you need to have a physical office. Zoom is also an office. If your spouse and you are co-founders of the company and you've got co-roles in the company, even if it's just in a supportive role, that is still your office environment. So in the office environment, however far possible, we should do in person over email and tech. We do not. I know so many people get frustrated and they say in Zoom meetings and everything like that, this could have been an email. It shouldn't be a meeting. This could have been an email. It shouldn't be a meeting. Yes and no, right? I understand when people use productive time away and it could have been a task assignment, that I get. But no, I don't want companies to take away that interpersonal meeting. I want people to understand that there's a relational thing involved. So yes, the tasks given out in the meeting, that can go, in an email or a task assignment. But the feeling and the reasoning and the discussion and the answering of why and the recap, that always needs to be personal, not surveys. We need to have, to the extent, number 2, to the first extent possible, in-person meetings. We can use tech and add Zoom to the room to take AI notes. AI can take notes, guys. Even if you're Afrikaans or English, it can take the notes. You don't even need to do that. You can have a discussion, take the notes. If you want to do the notes yourself, it's 100% fine. If you want to make it clear to AI, because sometimes AI is confused, you can say, this is the task that we're talking about. Set up a task. You can just say, like a Gemini, Llama, whoever, please assign this task to Willem Botha at this, and this. Meetings need to be more in person. Then, the third practical thing, if we want to model relational connection within our culture and habitat, is actually being open to invite. And I'm saying when people invite you to be actually open to going more, but also being open to invite people more into your space. And it can be a workspace. It can be really just, there's so many entrepreneurs that want to be mentored. Invite them in. Let them come hang around a day or two. Then in your household, it doesn't always need to wait for Sunday to meet church people, or wait for home group night to do that, or wait for monthly games night with friends to do that, a perfect environment. Be open. I dare you to invite more people in. And you can do it as follows, train with other people. If you're training for something or exercising or walking or running, and you see there's a neighbor next door, and you're walking around the block, just go to your neighbor and say, hey neighbor, I'm walking every day this time, if you ever feel like, and keep on inviting him. He's going to say no the first time. Sometimes he's going to say yes. And don't feel obligated or obliged to, there needs to be something more. Sometimes you just, that's it. That's the boundaries. That's the limitations. That's what I can offer at this moment. But just start somewhere. The other thing is, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, this is very awkward and it's very difficult, but I promise you, and I promise you, this will change your life. Coffee shops and restaurants. If you that person like me, my day goes around coffee shops all the time. Just for example, now, today I've got this episode that I need to record. Then I need to go to the gym because that's my gym space. And I've invited people in, by the way, for that opportunity. Then I need to have a meeting with a client at a certain time. And then directly after that, I need to go to the city. But my meeting or event is only tonight, so I've got a couple of hours. So I will be gathering around a coffee shop. I need to go earlier to miss the traffic, so I'll take my laptop with to do some admin and editing and things like that. So I've got work to do. I've got 100% work to do. But as soon as I stop there and I do it, I open up my laptop, I put up my stuff, and I scout around and I see one person. There's always one person. I'll say to that person, listen, I'm sitting here. I'm going to work. I'm not going to bother you. You're definitely not going to bother me. Don't you just want to sit at my table? Don't you just want to join me? And can I get you a coffee? Guys, it is as much awkward for them as for you. And I promise you, the fruit thereof, the relational connection, the people you meet, I promise you, the people you meet, the stories you hear, the calling you have in your life to be relational, that rush cup, it gets better and easier and more fun always. And you know what's a brilliant thing, right? When companies start, this is kind of a side note. I find so much joy to do this. So when companies start off, a lot of the time, brand new, like they've got a new product, they've got a new service, they're brand new, they've never operated, or especially when they're in a brand new environment, right? They get to the space where they say, well, we've done our research, we've done everything, our marketing campaigns are live, everything is there. Why is sales not coming through? And I'll go in there, I'll say, well, you check all the boxes, but the number one reason is the consumer, the client, doesn't owe you anything. They don't know if they can trust you. They don't have rapport with you. They don't know where they stand with you as of yet. So you first need to, especially if you are catering for service, especially someone like me, if I need to do a service where it's not a tangible product, my service is my product. Services are very difficult. If you're a lawyer in a new industry or just starting up shop, people don't know if they're going to trust you. You don't have any reviews yet. Even if you do have reviews, like, man, you can see when a review is recent and just supportive or whatever, or if it's something that you've been at it for ages. So this is my personal tip. The best, especially if you're in a service provision, the best way to build rapport is to be a person of the community. If the community knows you, the community trusts you. And if the community trusts you, your client will see it either directly or indirectly. So, do you want to know my cheat code? Do you want to know my cheat code? Let me give you my cheat code. I'm going to give you my cheat code. Right, so here's my cheat code. I go specifically to the furthest extent possible to the same coffee shop the same time. As much as I can to a coffee shop. Doesn't matter which brand. The brand differed from Nelspruit to Cape Town or from Somerset to Cape Town. It doesn't matter which brand. You find one, right? And if you need to jump, go jump, do your jumping, get that one. What you then do is you teach yourself to communicate very outspokenly so that the barista remembers you. Do not jump through the menu. Find one drink that you love. And there's a bit of cons about that, and I'll quickly explain now. The point of this exercise is 5 times in a row, the same barista should remember your order and should remember your name. That is your mission. Your mission is to make sure that they know your name, make sure that they know your drink order. Because then when you go back every single time after that, you look like a VIP. They treat you like a VIP, and everyone else around you trusts you because their local barista that they trusts you. Their local brand of coffee trusts you. Now, here's the con, right? Sometimes it's a very, very hot day. I like a flat white. If I go to Plato, I like a Aristotle, but that's kind of my drink. That's my baristas know what I like. So I lived in Nelspruit, which gets really, really hot in the summer. And I would go to my local barista, and as I see my car pulling in, literally, I haven't even entered the shop. They would prepare my drink, which is a hot drink. And sometimes you're actually in the mood for something cold, but you can't put up that thing of saying, no, not going to have that. Unfortunately, that's the one con is you need to have that consistency. People need to, because your barista will know you. But if your barista gets to the space where they are confused of what you're having today, you're missing the point. You can really use a coffee shop to build influence and rapport in the public. And remember, so many people say, yo, what about the unethical business or the bullshitter, or sorry about the language. I think I've got a beep on here. I should have beeped that. Where's the yep, here we go. For all the love it. Okay. And then guys, so in that space, what was I about to say? See, it's all the looking for the peeping that I don't always know. But in any case, so the whole point of, that's the point that I want to say. So when your barista comes or the community, you asking what about the pretentious person, because they can use this to build a rapport as well. We're not there from Not Yet Mature or XCAP side to go and expose the non-ethical businesses. They expose themselves. Unfortunately, I cannot hide tips and do and say, listen, this is only for the ethical. We actually want to uplift the unethical business and unethical business people and uplift them to become ethical and infinite. Right, so our mission is not to destroy, our mission is to uplift, and that's an inclusive space. We want to encourage and motivate. We want to be the light in how people should do business. We don't want governments to cease to exist. We want governments to do the right thing. We don't want evil corporations to cease to exist. We want them to do the right thing. That is what we want, right? That is what the ethical business wants. That's what the infinite person wants. Is they want a community of businesses that serves client. And if there needs to be more competition, then to serve all the clients, then there needs to be more. So Kevin O'Leary, whatever you pronounce his name, the famous billionaire Shark Tank guy, he said one thing that I love his books, I love his wisdom, I love everything, but there's always something that someone would say that I would say, I don't completely agree with it, but I understand the space that they're coming from. So in that space, he said the following. He says, if you want to have more money to invest, if you want to save up, stop going to coffee shops. Stop paying, and use the example for $5 for a coffee when it costs you $1 or 50 cents to make it home. And I completely agree with the fact that if you are a person that just goes to a coffee shop to buy a coffee, get in your car and leave, and you could have done that at home, then I agree with his statement, do it at home. But a coffee shop in today's business environment is a place where you can build rapport, number one. Two, get your finger out of your relational bum and go ahead and connect with people. Nowhere else would you be able to relationally connect and network with people while building trust for $50. Nowhere else. So if you use that space for the right correction, you get in your daily fix and you connect. I mean, how brilliant is that? Just use it right. And then practical things that you can also do is just number 6. We were on the coffee shop thing way too long, is connection without anything in return. Like, don't always expect something in return. Connect with people, and maybe it's a once-off thing. Maybe they're not going to invite you back. Maybe it's not sustainable. Doesn't matter, but just start somewhere. So let's have a crack at this. A business with a relational culture, what does that look like? Well, firstly, it looks like it is a business that is connected with its customers, meaning they no longer need to do market research on what the potential of customers potentially want or potentially desire. They have a database and a relationship with customers that they can turn to them and say, guys, where's the next? This is a two-way stream. What next can we do for you? And you might think those companies do not exist. And I'll personally, if just comment us, I'll jump on a webinar with you and I'll give you a list of hundreds of companies, known companies, global companies, listed companies that is exactly like this, that is connected personally to their customers, regardless of their size. And it can be much easier when you're smaller, but you need to start paying attention to that from the start, from your value system, to be of servitude with your customer. Otherwise, if you think you're only going to do that when you have hundreds or 200 or 300,000 customers and a customer care division, then you'll sort that out. You won't sort it out. You need to sort it out now. A business with a relational culture would be a business that operates more ethically. They would be a business that strive towards legacy, and legacies are always intended to be good. And listen to this, right? Even Hitler never went and say, I want to leave out. He clearly made it intentional, whether it was in that words or not, that he wants to leave behind a legacy. And nowhere when anyone, good leaders, bad leaders, anything, and yes, bad leader, I'm not saying it's debatable, but nowhere did someone that wanted to leave a legacy thought to themselves that this legacy that I want to leave is a bad legacy. All right? So legacies are intended to be good. The outcome thereof all depends on your move in between. But these companies with a relational connection, with a relational culture, they tend to leave a good legacy. They leave the mark. The owner's name was ironically are never forgotten. The founders' names ironically are never forgotten. They know they have made that mark. Relational connection actually adds purpose to the company, and purpose exceeds motivations. And I think last year, I know for a fact last year I did an amazing ton and tremendous amount of work and workshops and keynotes on the topic of purpose, finding purpose. So many authors out there, brilliant minds, talked about the importance thereof, to be purpose driven, the big question about why am I here, what should I do, am I significant, and what is my role, and everything like that. So let me just say this. Purpose is not the topic of the day, but most probably the most important thing to have, to grasp in your life is purpose. When you have and know your purpose in every aspect of your life changes. So when companies, from the start develop a culture or habits that develop and showcase purpose, not only in who they are, but who the employees are, man, no challenge will be too big. And let me give you an example of this. Companies with purpose versus companies with motivation. You can go into a keynote, listen to Bill Gates, come to my keynotes, go to Daniel Strauss's keynotes, go to any keynote out there, and you will walk out of that room and you will feel amazing. But if you haven't gotten any tools or you haven't got any go-to actions that you take upon yourself, that motivation fades. Motivation is short-term. Ironically, finances are motivational methods. I can give you an increase today and you'll be highly motivated, but the motivation is short term. Someone else can give you more. Tomorrow there will be new problems, etc., etc. When we are purpose driven, so many books out there. So if you ever feel stuck and feel that you don't know whether you need to be more purposeful or whether you need to focus on motivation or anything, focus on purpose. In companies, what we do is we actually see that when a company's employees are purpose driven within a good culture, those companies, when they get to the point of close to foreclosure or challenging times or not being able to pay people immediately, usually, most cases, those employees stick around. And they say, well, we're here with you. Yes, I've got my bills to pay. Yes, I've got things to sort out, but I'm here with you. I'm here to help sort out anything that you want to sort out. Wait, apologies about that. Well, hopefully remember to edit that out. I'm here to help you sort that out. And you will see that everywhere. So purpose is very important. A practical value that I have is, okay, going back to the practicality of building this relational value system. The purpose was just a sideline. Sorry, I'm jumping through a couple of things here. Just made a lot of notes that I felt that was valuable to bring this to a conclusion. And if you know me, I talk sometimes too much. Apologies. So a practical value that I have is I email the overview of the meeting and not the instructions of the meeting. So when we have a meeting, I will say, this is the minutes, this is the instruction, this is the overview of the meeting. And then after the meeting, I will do and say, listen, yeah, here's the AI notes or the minutes or the task thereof, but I won't give the instructions. I won't say, this is how you need to do this item. For example, if I say you need to put the phone on charge, so many people say in that email, this is the instructions of what needs to be done. The instructions of any task or any item I keep personally. I want to make it personal. I always want to make it personal. I always want to keep room, even from an instructional point of view, to be relational. Why? Because when there's questions, it would be asked. When there's assumptions, it would just go away. If there's expectations, that is clearly more valuable, or prioritizing, or anything else, or an opportunity to understand how people are in that space, in their capabilities, it will come to light. Plus, I will keep the relational cup full. If you struggle to connect to people, right? We all struggle in a sense of, I cannot cope with that person, or just not that person, or I'm a shy, I'm an introvert, I'm a this, I'm a this, I'm a this. I would highly suggest, and sometimes I just suggest books, sometimes I don't, but one thing that I will actually suggest is the following. I would suggest reading a book called Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erickson. What I love about this book is it is very easy to read. Very, very easy to read. Anyone can read it. The one thing that annoys me a bit about the book is the author, and I don't know him personally, on some points he comes forward a bit apologetically about what he is going to say instead of offending someone. But I reckon that is great. So his annoyance is a great thing because of the book. The book is about reading people and categorizing them, kind of like sociably, their personality, everything that they do, just in 4 quadrants, 4 colors. You get to know yourself a lot better, and you get to know other people better. And this book gives you tips on how you should work or what you should avoid when you see that. And because it's written so well, the reason why I say the annoyance is a good thing is because you can immediately even connect with the author. You can immediately put him in a box and agree with the things that his friends say about him or his coworkers say about him. And you see, but I see this in the way that you're writing. I agree with him, and it adds so much value. But the reason why this book is so easy to read is it's just practical, just basic. And understanding people, that we all are different, it truly gives you this amazing superhero ability to connect with people, that is not like you, and how you should connect with them. And not only see other people that's not like you as not like you, they also not like each other always. And in any case, short book totally makes sense if you're in business or in human psychology, on sales, or just want to meet new people, even if it's just relationally connect. I would strongly recommend read that book. It's an easy read. It's an amazing book, and it definitely helps me a lot with connecting with people. Okay, so let's start bringing this to a close. The outcome of being relational is actually being less stressed. The more relational we are, the less stressed we are. Relational takes away the idea of assumption, and it adds emotion in real time. Think about the email or WhatsApp message. It's astonishing that when you send an email, or let's wait before the send, when you read an email or WhatsApp, you read it in the tone of the mood that you are in, right? So in the past, what we've learned never to instantly reply or send a message out of frustration. Some psychologists suggest that type it out so it gets out of your head on your paper so that you can calm down, proofread it, and then send it. And some people do that. That's brilliant. That's perfect. What I say is Don't even read the email or read the WhatsApp when you're irritated. Don't do it. Just read it when you calm down already. Just read it. And even if you don't know what it's about, if you're in a bad mood, don't open it up because you're going to read it in the tone of voice that you are in now. Okay. So that's emails and WhatsApps. But when we see someone in person, that assumption or emotion that's to the table, it can't be hidden. We see through that. And that's why relationships are so important, or relational interaction are so important, because we don't need to assume. We can be way more effective and accurate, and our implementation can be so much stronger. We can be more sustainable. We can be everything better than what we are than being non relational. In person, almost always is a better experience. In person, almost always a clearer communication. And ironically, almost always a space of acceptance of mistakes. There's a bit more grace. So usually when we're given our instruction on email, someone doesn't comply, it's most probably because we didn't understand the situation, the scope, there was not clear communication. But in any case, we don't always have that grace. We're like, but I said it out. I can take that same content and same context even and just word for word give it in person. And if that person fails, naturally and ironically, it's the weirdest thing, we tend to have more grace and help out. It's a calmer environment. We build all these leadership traits from just being relationally connected. The outcome of being relationally connected is trust, rapport with clients of the community. The outcome is enjoyment, and life isn't just task oriented. Networking subscriptions was never a business model. It was never a thing. No one needed to pay to network. We networked by networking. And I'm not complaining too much because it's part of my work, but I think in the past there was always a sense of selling in a hierarchy, meaning you need to subscribe to be part of a specific club or where influential people go and connect, because they're not always as part of your society. But just meeting other people wasn't a networking thing. So how can we? How can we network better? How can we connect better? How do we execute this? Okay. If you need to belong to a club and you do sport, I love the business model of the Art of Mondays. Okay, go check them out. The Art of Mondays is a brilliant idea where they say what you do is you put in your area and your name, and you go ahead and you say what sport types you like, and they link you with like-minded people. But their business model is to get people connected through training. But you can do that yourself. You can just invite people to go play padel. I think that's how they pronounce paddle, or tennis, or running, or whatever. Just invite people in, even if it's people that you don't know. Invite others and tell them to bring a friend. And then do the same with business. Walk around and talk about business. Say, listen, guys, I'm not going to market or pitch my business. I've got 2 or 3 known problems that I want your opinion on. And you'll be amazed how that networking just spirals. Find common grounds and connections, like business, for example, and have a clear or clearly an unclear agenda. So if this is a walk to talk about business, tell people, bring 3 possible problems, or here's my problems, bring 3 possible solutions, bring a friend, bring whatever. And if there's no clear agenda, be clear about the unclarity of the agenda. Like, this is just a social, there's no expectations, it's a one for free, free for all. Just be clear on that. The other point that I want to make is the fact that we need to be more honest and less modest. The important thing about who we are is we tend to be nice by being modest. Modesty helps no one. We need to be honest, and I'm not saying honest being rude, but if you're going for a run, I'm using a lot of athletic terms here, I understand that, but if you're going for a run, don't say, oh, it's going to be slow and everyone can join, and then you go and do a PB on there. People should know that when you say it's a community thing, then make it a community thing, open for all. And if it's going to be fast paced, tell people it's going to be fast paced. But at least create this opportunity for people knowing that they can go on their own pace, but there will be an environment for them. The same with business. If we're going to talk about certain things in business, tell them straight. You want to talk about a financial solution. So, if possible, guys, can we just stick to that because I'm sitting in this bubble and I need your help with that? I think that is the important thing that people need to understand is the mere fact that we need to be more relational when it comes to all of that sense. The other thing is, sorry.
This is Not Yet Mature, and you are listening to Dion Richter. Thanks for being here. Please subscribe to our channels.